I'd like to welcome everybody to today's Iowa Sales and Use Tax Basics webinar, part 2. We're going to be starting in about 10 minutes, so just hang in there. You are at the right place. If you can see me and hear me, we'll be getting started here before too long. I see a lot of people are logging in. Welcome if you have not been here before. If you have been here before, welcome back. So again, about 10 minutes or so we'll be starting, so just hang in there. There we go. All righty. Welcome, everybody. We've got just a couple of minutes before we're going to be starting our webinar today, which is Iowa Sales and Use Tax Basics Part 2. Again, this is going to pick up where we left off last month. If you were here for Part 1, we're going to provide a little more detail on some things for you as well. What we've done in the past is we go through the PowerPoint presentation first, and then we have some time at the end of the today's session for questions, and I'll do my best to answer the questions that we can in the time that we have. If you don't get your question answered, that's okay. I'll give you some information so you can contact us, or we can get back to you. We do want to provide an answer for your question. So we'll gladly. This isn't the end of it here. I guess when you leave today, we'll get back with you or give you some information so you can get back with us. But we do want to get your issue taken care of. So it looks like people are logging in as we speak. Again, we've got a couple of minutes left, and then we'll be getting started here. So welcome to everybody. I see a few familiar names that are signed up. Welcome back. Good to see you. All righty.
Okay, should we get going, Terry?
We can go ahead and get going.
All right, welcome everybody. We're excited that you can join us here. We're covering an extremely exciting topic today on sales taxes and use taxes. We're joining you today from the University of Northern Iowa in Cedar Falls, and we do these webinars in partnership with the Department of Revenue. We're glad to make this service available. It's been a great partnership for both of us, I think, and so we appreciate that. Appreciate your attendance. I know Terry's going to cover several things today, kind of get in more depth of what we covered last time, but you know, local option, I think, the difference between sales and use, and maybe some state boundary level
information on some consumers use tax.
Perfect. Great. So our department is the Center for Business Growth and Innovation here at UNI, and we do a lot of work, direct work with entrepreneurs, providing consulting services, and so I appreciate everybody's time here. And if you are having any technical difficulties, my colleague Patrick Linsman is available to answer any questions on that. His phone number is 319-273-4335. Again, 319-273-4335. So if you've got any issues trying to get logged in or can't hear us or whatever else might be the issue, give Patrick a jingle. So with that, Terry, I'll let you take over and walk us through today, okay?
Okay, thanks a lot, Dan. As I said before, welcome everyone. Terry O'Neill. I'm a longtime taxpayer service specialist with the Iowa Department of Revenue. I've worked out of the Davenport area for many years, and we've been doing these webinars for several years now here at the campus of the University of Northern Iowa, and it's great to be here again today. So with that being said, let's just go ahead and jump right into our presentation, Iowa Sales and Use Tax Basics, Part 2. Just to kind of pick up and a little bit of refresher from last month, sales tax and use tax, what's the difference between them? Well, that's what we're going to talk about here today. We'll go through a little refresher on that, what we covered last month. For sales tax, and this is pretty straightforward. In order for a transaction to be subject to sales tax, the sale has to be made from an Iowa location, and delivery of the product must occur in Iowa if it's a sale of tangible personal property, or the service must be performed in Iowa if it is a taxable service. So again, that's what it takes to be a sales tax transaction. Again, pretty straightforward. And this next one here, we always do a little reminder with this one. Sales tax is something that's collected by the retailer. The one that actually pays the tax is the final consumer. So if you are going to a retail store and purchasing some tangible personal property that's taxable, you, the customer, are the one that actually pays the tax. The retail store is just simply collecting it, and then they're going to remit it onto the department. Now, the reason that we have this slide in here, because people have asked me before, they're saying, what's up with that? The reason we have this in here is because it's common to get questions. A typical question that I may get will be, somebody charged tax to somebody that is exempt. And I'm just going to throw this out for an example. Let's say a retailer charged a governmental entity sales tax on a purchase. Okay, they're generally speaking, those are going to be tax exempt. And then I will get get a contact from someone, and they'll say, "Hey, wait a minute! I accidentally charged somebody tax that I shouldn't have. How do I get the money back?" Well, the retailer is not entitled to a refund. Okay, the only one that can get a refund is the one that actually paid the tax. So in this example, it would be the governmental entity. So I just want you to be aware why we have this up here. The retailer is not entitled to a refund of sales tax that was collected from their customer. If it's an exempt transaction, it's exempt from tax, that's fine. The customer can get a refund, but the retailer is not entitled to get a refund of tax they collected from the customer. All righty, let's move on here. I see we do have something here with a large screen. We'll have some people take a look at that. Jumping on to use tax. Use tax is going to require an out-of-state vendor and an Iowa purchaser. Okay, so we've got an out-of-state transaction going on here. When it comes to use tax, this can be collected by the retailer. That's called retailer's use tax, or it can be paid to the state directly by the purchaser. That's called consumer's use tax. Again, we'll spend a little bit more time on these and explain them to you just a little bit. Tax rate. If you remember from last time, or if you didn't, the state sales tax rate and the state use tax rate is 6%. In addition, many areas in Iowa have an additional 1% local option sales tax, which we refer to as lost. So with this local option tax, it's going to be the difference between the transaction being subject to 6% tax or 7% tax. Okay, so again, if it's a local option sales tax or a lost transaction, it's going to be subject to 7% tax instead of 6%. Now with this lost, again, this is something that the local communities put in. This can be imposed by Iowa counties or cities. And again, there's many areas that do have the local option sales tax. It just depends on where you're located at and where the transaction is occurring. I'll expand on that here just momentarily. First thing that people ask us many times is, do I need a special permit to collect this lost? The answer is no. If you are already registered for Iowa sales tax or Iowa retailer's use tax, you're automatically set up for the local option sales tax. And with that, you do all the filing through the Department of Revenue, and you also remit all the tax to the department. The Department of Revenue will disperse that 1% local option tax to the proper area. When you do your filings, you're going to have to tell us which county you collected that local option tax in. We will put it in a pool of money, and then we have distribution formulas based on population and also property tax assessed values that we use to distribute the funds to the local communities. We do that on a monthly basis, and we actually make 13 payments because we do one usually in the fall that's kind of a catch-up. You know, if we were a little bit short on distributing local option tax, that's why we make the 13th payment each year. But again, nothing special is needed. All you have to do is have a sales tax permit or retailer's use tax permit, do all the filing through the Department of Revenue, remit all the money to the department, and we will disperse it where it needs to go from there. How do you know if a place has the lost, if a jurisdiction has it? This is a common question that we get as well. And the best thing I can do is refer you to our website. Our website is listed there, is the tax.iowa.gov. And placed down below in kind of the central area there, it's circled in red, it says local option tax. Get into that link and you can look up the jurisdictions statewide. Many times when I get questions from taxpayers, they'll ask, you know, does such and such area have local option tax? Well, unless it happens to be in my corner of the state where I know the answer off the top of my head, this is where I go. I have to go click on our website and I have to take a look at what area you're talking about. And I can find out there if it's got the local option tax or not. So again, something to be aware of. It's a good tool that you can find out for yourself. We've also got a place where you can use a lookup application. And by this I mean you can do a search either by zip code or by address and that's going to tell you what the rate of tax is in that particular area. Now, I must warn you, this is not a perfect system. What you get out of this is only as good as the information you put in. So the most accurate information in my experience has been if you have the zip code +4 address. That's the most accurate information. If you just plug in a street address, that's pretty good, except you may get multiple responses or multiple jurisdictions that it could fall under. This is not, the local option tax is not just always so neat and clean, especially if you're out in a rural area. Depends on which county you're located in sometimes. Again, check out our lookup application, check out our listing as well. One thing to remember, this only changes twice a year. It changes on either January 1st or it changes on July 1st. So again, look at the website for the latest information. When you contact the department, this is what we use to help to give you an answer to tell if an area has the tax or not.
So just because you spend money in a local area and spend that, you're charged that lost tax in that local area does not mean that that lost tax is going to come back to that local area?
Well, it'll come back to the county. Again, it's based on distributions. I'll explain here in a couple slides how the tax applies, but we do distribute it back to the communities within the county that have the lost. I guess what you're saying, Dan, if my dollar of loss that I pay here, is it going to come back to this community? Maybe, maybe not.
Okay.
It's going to depend on how the formulas work out.
Okay.
It will come back within the county, though. Again, whether it comes to that exact community, maybe, maybe not. Okay. If you've been to webinars before, I always like to throw a couple quizzes in here just to make sure you're catching on to what I'm saying, you're following along, and also to make sure you're not going to sleep on me. First one here, simple true or false. An Iowa retailer needs a local option tax permit from each jurisdiction that imposes the lost. This, of course, is going to be false. Again, once you're registered for state sales tax or retailer's use tax, you're automatically set up to collect the local option tax. Okay, this kind of goes back to what Dan was asking a little bit here. When does the tax apply? Well, generally, it applies to the same things that are subject to state sales tax. Notice I said state sales tax, not use tax. So it's going to be subject to the same things that are subject to state sales tax. There is an exception. We'll point that out to you here in just a minute. When we're talking about sales of tangible personal property, the lost applies when taxable goods are delivered in a jurisdiction imposing the tax. So again, it's going to depend on where do you take delivery? Where do you take possession of that item? For example, I'm from the Davenport area. We do have the lost in Davenport. If I stop off in Davenport and I purchase some tangible personal property that's taxable, I take it with me right there from Davenport, I'm going to end up paying the local option tax rate in Scott County. If I take delivery of something, if I go to Des Moines, for instance, the city of Des Moines does not have a local option sales tax at this time. If I pick up something in Des Moines, take it with me, take it home, I do not owe local option sales tax because, again, delivery occurred in an area that does not have the tax. When it comes to taxable services, and if you recall, if you were here last time, I did provide some information on taxable services. If you don't have that information and you need it or you weren't here last time, check out our website under publications. We've got a publication that tells what services are subject to tax. And when it comes to services, the lost applies at the first use of a taxable service, where it occurs or where it could occur. Just a quick example on that. Let's say that I was going to get my hair cut, and barber and cosmetology services are a taxable service, okay? If I get my hair cut in Des Moines, again, Des Moines does not have the lost, so I would only pay 6% tax if I got my hair cut in Des Moines. The first use of that service is in Des Moines, so no local option tax applies. If I get back home to Davenport, that does have a local option tax. If I get my hair cut there, it will apply in that situation. Can the loss be imposed when state sales tax isn't? Remember I said a little bit ago that generally speaking, it applies to the same things that are subject to state sales tax. Well, in this situation, there is an exception. The only exception is your residential energy bills, like your home heating bill. If you do live in a local option area, you will pay the local option tax, but you will not pay the state sales tax. Okay, we go by the billing address is what we go by. So with that exception, other than this situation, if a sale is subject to state sales tax, it's going to be subject to local option sales tax if delivery occurs in a local option area, or if the first use of the service was in a local option area. As I mentioned, when it comes to your utilities, this is going to be billed by the billing address. It doesn't necessarily mean where the property was located. We go by the billing address. That just makes things a lot easier for people to administer and make sure that the proper tax is being collected and remitted to the department. Question number 2, is the lost due? And again, this just reiterates what we were talking about here. Des Moines does not have the lost. Adel does have the lost. If an Adel resident buys a refrigerator at a Des Moines store and asks the store to deliver it to her home, okay, does the lost apply in this situation? Well, in this case, it's going to be yes, because delivery is occurring in Adel, so lost will apply. Okay, we've got a question up here. I mentioned that the refund is due to who pays the tax. If we bill tax, but the customer short pays the invoice by tax you charged. Okay. If the customer short pays the tax for some reason, all right, they really need to make sure that they provide an exemption certificate. That's the ideal situation. If they do not, if they short paid you and then they send you something a month later and they're like, here's an exemption certificate, we're exempt from tax. In that situation, since you, the retailer, did remit tax on the sale, we would allow you a refund in that situation. Again, what I'm believe that's going on here is somebody short paid, but the retailer already remitted the tax onto the department because they had it down as a taxable sale. If it is found to be an exempt sale, we'll let you go get a refund on that. Usually what you do is you amend the quarterly return. Okay, good deal. Let's move on to the next one here. Iowa tax permits for sales tax and for use tax. These are the permits that we issue. Retail sales tax, this is the number sequence. Number 1 just means retail sales tax. The next 2 digits, 85 in this example, is the county number where the retailer is located. We issue sales tax permits by the county where the retailer is physically located. And then you're going to have 6 digits after that. That's going to be your sales tax permit number. Retailer's use tax, again, this is for businesses located outside the state of Iowa that are making taxable sales in Iowa. Their number always starts with a 2, okay? It's going to be a 2, and then since they're out of state, it's going to be 00, and it's going to have 6 digits after that. That's, again, for an out-of-state business to collect and remit Iowa tax. We'll tell you why they need to do that here in just a few minutes. Consumer's use tax, which, again, we'll spend a little bit more time on here shortly. This one always starts with a 9. If you're located in Iowa, this is going to start with a 9. The county number, 64 in this situation, is going to be the county where they're located at. So that's how our number sequence works. We also have a direct pay permit number, and there's only about 25 to 30 of these roughly. These are for companies that are very large companies. They purchase a lot of things. They pay no tax to any vendor when they buy things, okay? They buy things, some are taxable, some are exempt. They self-assess and remit the tax directly to the Department of Revenue. If you ever run across one of these and they're telling you, hey, I'm exempt, I've got a direct pay permit, that is a legitimate exemption. They should provide a sales tax exemption certificate, and they should put their direct pay permit number in there. one thing you will notice is the fourth digit is always a 9 in our number sequence. So that's how you know it is a direct pay permit. These are also very large companies as well. So you get the idea. This isn't the ma and pa store on the corner. These are large worldwide companies. You'd recognize the names if you ever come across one. Okay, just stepping back a little bit here on sales tax permits. It's illegal to make taxable sales without a permit. So you've got to have a retail sales tax permit if you're going to be making taxable sales in Iowa. You've got to have that. Each retail location must have its own permit. And this is a question I get fairly frequently. We've got a picture here, for instance, of a subway. That's in our picture on the slide. There's a lot of subways around the state of Iowa. Each one of those has to have their own permit. It doesn't matter if the owner owns, 4 of these franchises or 24 of these franchises. Each location has to have its own sales tax permit. When it comes time to file, you can file returns by individual permit number, individual location, or if you have multiple locations, you can request a consolidated permit number, and you can do a consolidated filing, which you can do for all of the locations. It's really up to you on which way you go. We're not terribly concerned if you have a consolidated and you file that way, or if you file for each location. It's up to you. As long as you're collecting and remitting the proper tax, we're good with you. Again, just make sure that you do have a permit for each location. As I said, I do get questions on this. Somebody will open up a store, and maybe a few years down the road, then they open up another location. Maybe it's in the same town, maybe it's not. Maybe it's in another county. We'll usually find out maybe after the fact, a couple of years, they'll say, do I need a permit for that other location? The answer is yes. So make sure that you remember that if you ever have multiple locations that you're dealing with. Okay, when it comes to retailer's use tax, do you need a retailer's use tax permit? Well, we've got to ask you a couple questions first. Are you located outside of Iowa? If that is yes, okay, you may need a retailer's use tax permit. Are you making taxable sales in Iowa? If that's a yes, you may need a retailer's use tax permit. We've got to do a little bit further digging here before we can give you a definitive answer. How do you know if you're going to need a permit or not? You are required to charge and collect Iowa tax if you have nexus or a presence in this state. If you have nexus, you do need to have an Iowa use tax permit, retailer's use tax permit, excuse me. Looks like we've got a question here as well. If we are located in Iowa but deliver to customers in Minnesota, do we need to have a permit in Minnesota? The answer to that is a very definite maybe. You really need to contact the state of Minnesota and see what's required. I don't know about the nexus situation in Minnesota. Maybe you're required to collect Minnesota tax, maybe not. It depends on circumstances, but I would check with Minnesota to be sure. So good question. Thanks a lot. Okay, with the nexus issue, what is this nexus? And a lot of people are thinking, hey, wait a minute, what in the world is nexus? These next couple slides will tell you the types of things that can create nexus. First of all, if you've got some type of location here, if you've got an office or a warehouse or some type of property located in Iowa, that's going to create some nexus here. If you've got a representative located here, maybe you've got sales reps here that are out soliciting sales. Maybe you've got some type of independent contractor that's soliciting sales for you. That would be an example of a situation that would create nexus as well. Maybe you send a crew down here to work in Iowa. Maybe they're installing some things in Iowa. All of these things, these presence in Iowa are going to establish nexus. And what does that mean? It means if you make taxable sales here, you must have a retailer's use tax permit. Some other examples, just to get you thinking a little bit. By the way, we do have information on nexus on our website. If this is an issue for you, I would direct you to our website, which I'll give you the commercial and tell you what the website is again here towards the end of things today. But go ahead and get in there on the search, click on Nexus, or excuse me, type in Nexus, and it'll give you some information on Nexus. Maybe we've got a construction contractor from outside the state of Iowa. They come into Iowa to perform a construction contract. Yep, that's going to create nexus. If we're doing some type of service work here in Iowa, that can create nexus as well. Delivery. If you've got your trucks, company vehicles are driving around in Iowa, delivering products here, driving up and down the Iowa highways, doing some things here, this is going to create nexus. So you will have to have a permit if you're making taxable sales here. One thing too, just to reiterate, I've mentioned several times about these permits. You only need a permit if you make taxable sales, okay? Just because you're in business does not automatically mean you need an Iowa tax permit. Only if you make taxable sales in Iowa do you need either a sales tax permit or a retailer's use tax permit. If your sales aren't taxable, there's no reason to get a permit. Okay, again, quiz number 3, just to make sure you're following along with me here. We've got a retailer, they've got a store in Moline. They deliver products to customers in Davenport, Iowa in their own delivery truck. Do they need a sales tax permit or retailer's use tax permit? Well, in this situation, and this happens a lot in the Quad Cities, they're going to need retailer's use tax. Again, it does establish nexus if they've got their own truck making deliveries here. There was a court case on this way back in the day, and as I get more gray hair, I can quote these cases to you. Goods Furniture case deals with this whole nexus issue and trucks making deliveries in Iowa. So if you're interested in that, you can do a little research in that area.
So if you hired a third-party logistics company to do your delivery work for you, then it is not.
If you're going to hire a company, a UPS, a FedEx type of thing or something, they're a common carrier. They work for anybody.
Yeah.
That's not going to establish nexus.
Okay.
If you've got some contract carrier that all they do is deliver for you, yeah, that could establish nexus.
Okay.
So it can make a difference. Again, if nexus is an issue for you, I would direct you to our website. Type nexus in the little search box, and there is information on there. There is also a link to ask specific questions about your situation as well. So, good questions. All righty. Do I need to pay Iowa consumer's use tax? Well, I'll tell you, this is something that probably a lot of us should be paying some Iowa consumer's use tax. First of all, what is it? Well, this is a tax on the use of taxable goods or services in Iowa when sales tax was not paid at the time of purchase. The tax rate for use tax in Iowa is 6%. There is no local option use tax, okay? There is only local option sales tax, so the tax rate is going to be 6%. This applies to taxable goods or services used in Iowa, and they're going to be subject to either sales tax or use tax, but not both. So again, if it's a taxable service you purchased, or you have taxable goods, taxable tangible personal property, you owe either sales tax or use tax. You do not owe both. Let's get back to this use tax just a little bit here. What are we talking about? Well, in this day, especially with online and e-commerce going on, if you purchase something over the internet, okay, and you take delivery here in Iowa, chances are you're going to owe us some Iowa consumer's use tax. Many times you'll notice that on a transaction, if you purchase something over the internet, they don't charge you any tax at all. That's probably because they are from out of state and they do not have nexus in Iowa. If you do not have nexus in Iowa and you're located outside the state of Iowa, we don't have any jurisdiction over you. We cannot make you collect Iowa tax. So therefore, it falls on the customer. The purchaser is the one that has to collect. They have to remit that tax directly onto the Department of Revenue. Any of the types of things that you may think of if you're ordering things, again, internet purchases are the big one. Mail order catalogs, if you call up some 800 number and you order something from out of state and it gets delivered in here, this is an example of when consumer's use tax would most likely apply. Any of you that have offices, most people with offices, if you deal with the public, you've probably got a waiting room. And in that waiting room, there's always magazines. Magazine subscriptions are something that's subject to consumer's use tax on many occasions. If you subscribe to a magazine, and it is coming in here from out of state. And this is just something to have for your customers while they're waiting for you. That's an example of a situation where consumer's use tax would apply. It applies to any untaxed purchases that were made in another state and brought or shipped into the state of Iowa. So something to be aware of. One thing too, a lot of people always ask, well, what's the compliance rate on that for individuals? A lot of people have probably never heard of that as an individual. I would imagine the compliance rate for individuals is kind of low, okay? Businesses comply a lot better because we do have folks called auditors that go out and audit businesses. And I know for a fact that they comply better because they've got permits to do that. Again, just because somebody has not paid any consumer's use tax does not mean you are not subject to it. Looks like we have another question here. We purchase items from a supplier located outside the state of Iowa, and they ship it from a non-Iowa location. The supplier charges sales tax on the invoice. Should they collect lost? Good question. It depends. It depends on delivery. And the best way I can describe this to you is go to our website, and in the search box, the little gray box, put in delivery. And we do have a link on there. We've got some information that will tell you the difference between sales tax and use tax. It comes down to delivery. If the transaction is a sales tax transaction, based on the delivery information that you have, it will be subject to the lost, okay? If it is subject to use tax, per the delivery information on our website, there will be no lost. So again, go to the gray box, put in delivery, and you will find some information in there on delivery as far as determining if it's a sales tax or use tax transaction. Alrighty, good question. Back to the slides. What if I pay tax to another state? An example of this, maybe you go on vacation somewhere. Maybe you will go to another state for vacation and you buy some things on vacation, and then you bring them back to the state of Iowa, okay? If sales tax was paid to another state on goods or services in that state, no additional tax is due if the tax paid is the same or more than 6%. So if you go to a state where the rate is less than the state rate of Iowa, which is 6%, you're going to owe us the difference on that. So something to be aware of. I'm in the eastern Iowa area, and obviously we border with Illinois, and it's very frequent for people to buy things in Illinois, bring them back here to Iowa. Since the Illinois state tax rate is equal to or greater than Iowa, you don't owe us anything. But that may not be the case as far as use tax is concerned if you go to another state. So something to be aware of. Another question here, a quick one. Are delivery fees taxable? Well, delivery to get product from, say, me, the seller, to you, the purchaser, is not taxable if it's separately stated on the invoice. It's reasonable in amount. It's based on actual transportation. And what do I mean by reasonable? For an example, let's say that you buy a $100 item and it costs $10 to ship it to you. Okay, I'm going to put it in the mail, or I'm going to load it on the UPS truck, and it's $10. If you start thinking about this and say, maybe we can lower the tax a little bit. Maybe I'll only charge $10 for the product, and I'll charge $100 for shipping. That situation, you're clearly trying to avoid some tax and get around some things, so that's not reasonable. So again, as long as it's based on transportation charges, it's separately stated and it's reasonable, and it involves the transportation to get product from me, the seller, to you, the purchaser, it is not subject to tax. Good questions. Okay, this consumer's use tax, I've kind of given you some examples. I've told you when you owe this tax, how do you pay it? Well, if you are a business or an individual and you're making taxable purchases on a regular basis, you're doing this month after month after month to where you owe some of this consumer's use tax, you should really apply for a permit. Many businesses do this because as a normal course of business, they buy things from out of state, different supplies and things that they may use in their business. They just get a consumer's use tax permit and they do regular filings with the department. If that's what you do, you really need to get registered with us. What if I only do this on occasion? If you are a business and you only make these types of purchases on occasion, and you happen to have a sales tax permit, you can report that on the goods consumed line on your sales tax quarterly return. So by that I mean, let's say that you are we'll say you're a barber. We'll stick with the haircutting examples today. A barber would have a sales tax permit because barber and cosmetology services are subject to sales tax. So let's say that a couple times a year, a barber buys maybe some equipment or some tools of the trade, so to speak. Maybe they buy a new set of clippers and some combs. They do this maybe 3 times a year. Well, that doesn't really justify having a consumer's use tax permit and doing a separate filing. But you do have a sales tax permit. So on the quarterly return, on line 2, there's a goods consumed line. You can put your cost down on that line of the items that you purchased, and it will flow through on the sales tax return, and you will remit the proper tax to the department when it flows through your return and you do your filing. So that avoids having another permit when you really don't make those types of purchases all that often. What about if you're a business or you're an individual and you don't have a sales tax permit? Okay, how do you remit the tax then? Well, we've got some other ways to help you out with that. On our website, we've got our e-file and pay system. And for those of you that do have an Iowa tax permit, you're registered for something, you're probably familiar with the e-file and pay system. That's how you file and you remit your tax that is due. You can do this even if you don't have a permit. If you go on our entry screen and down toward the bottom of the screen, there is a place to file as not enrolled. And you can go on there as needed, and you can submit your consumer's use tax that way. It's really a pretty slick system. It works out really well. We also have a paper worksheet as well. On our website, you can get in there under forms and you can find the paper form to do that. This is something that you can fill out. It is a fillable form. You can print it off, put a check with it, and mail it to us. So this is another way that you can go ahead and take care of the consumer's use tax liability. So we've got a way to help you out. If you owe your consumer's use tax, we'll help you get it paid. We've got several different methods to do so. Let's see here. We've got another question, it looks like. If you don't get a consumer's use tax permit and you just use line 2 of the Iowa sales tax filing to report items subject to use tax, that doesn't start the statute of limitations for use tax to start running, does it? Yeah, maybe. That's a definite maybe. I know where you're coming at on this. You're thinking statute of limitations as far as audit is concerned. We're going to look at it on a case-by-case basis, basically. If you are actually making purchases and you've been reporting it that way for quite a few years, it could possibly start the statute of limitations. We got to look at it on a case-by-case basis. I guess I do not have a hard, fast rule for you in this situation. Okay, does the lost apply to use tax? And I mentioned this a little bit earlier as well. No, it does not. Lost is a sales tax. There is no local option use tax transactions. So just make sure that that if the transaction is subject to sales tax, delivery occurs in a lost area, or first use of a service is in a lost area, then you are going to, the lost will apply. But if it is a true use tax transaction, the lost will not apply. Again, how do you know if it's a use tax or if it's a sales tax transaction? Again, check out our website, get on the search box, the little gray box, put in there delivery, and we've got some good information in there to help you make a determination on that. All righty, another quiz question for you just to get you thinking a little bit. Is consumer's use tax due in this situation? We've got an Iowa resident, they're going on vacation. They're going to the Wisconsin Dells, and they make some purchases while they are there. They get charged 5% Wisconsin sales tax. The person then brings the souvenirs home after vacation. Do they owe Iowa any consumer's use tax? The answer to that is yes, they do, since the rate is less than the 6% Iowa tax, and they're going to end up owing us 1% tax is what they're going to owe us. That is the difference. So again, something to think about. Another situation that we always get around Christmas time, we get a lot of people that go shopping. They go on the bus trips to the Mall of America in Minnesota. And as far as I still understand, in Minnesota, clothing is not subject to sales tax. So when people do their shopping up in Minnesota at the Mall of America, they do not pay any tax to the state of Minnesota. So when they're coming back to Iowa and they get here, they're going to owe Iowa consumers use tax of 6% on their purchases. So something to be aware of, something to think of. How do I apply for a permit? Well, we've got a couple of different ways that you can apply for a tax permit with the state of Iowa. Probably the easiest is you can just do this online. We've got a link here that is shown up on our PowerPoint. You can go ahead and you can complete the registration online. If you don't want to complete it online, that's okay. You can print off the paper business tax registration, and you can submit it to us by fax or by mail. So you do have a couple of different options. The processing time, these are processed in the order received, and the processing time is 4 to 6 weeks generally. Sometimes could be a little quicker, sometimes a little slower. It just depends on the workload. However, you can start making taxable sales right away, even if you do not have your permit. So today we are in the month of July. You can go ahead, if you submitted an application today, you could start collecting Iowa sales tax on your sales today. You can do that. Even though you're not going to have your permit for probably a month, month and a half, that's okay. You're not going to, you can go ahead and you can make your taxable sales and you can collect tax.
You not only can you, but you're required to, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Good point, Dan. Yes, you're required to in that situation. One common thing that we're getting at this time of the year, for those of you that have permits, you know that the second quarter return is coming up due here pretty quick. It's going to be due on this particular time, it's going to be due on August 1st, just because the 31st of July falls on a weekend. What if you just submitted your application last week and you've been in business during the second quarter and your second quarter filing is going to be due here pretty soon? How do you take care of the tax in that situation? Well, you're not going to be able to file through e-file and pay for this quarter. What you need to do is get a paper quarterly sales tax return, which you can find on our website. You can print that out, use applied for as your permit number, and you can submit that with a check. As long as it's postmarked by August the 1st, you're going to be timely with your sales tax. So again, something to remember. Let's go back here. We got a question on our example about Wisconsin Dells. Why doesn't it matter that the sale and possession delivery all took place in Wisconsin for a normal person with no sales or use tax permits? Well, it does matter because then you're only going to owe us 1% instead of owing us 6%. If you took delivery in Wisconsin, okay, you're subject to Wisconsin law, first of all. And Wisconsin, in the example I gave, is charging you tax in this situation, but their state tax rate is only 5%. So when you come back to Iowa, there's going to be some use tax due, and we do give you credit for tax properly paid to another state. And since you already paid 5% properly to Wisconsin, we're going to say you still owe us 1%. Again, a lot of people probably not aware of that. That's why we try to get the word out when we do webinars such as this. We want to get the word out so that people do comply properly and make sure they remit the proper amount of tax. Okay, let's move on here once, and then I'll take a couple questions. I said on our website that you can click on the link to apply for a permit. Again, I've got the link highlighted there. It's circled in red on the PowerPoint. Go ahead and either complete it online if you'd like, or print off the paper version, whatever works best for you. Let's step back here again. We had a couple questions up on the board here. Does our company need to separately state tax on our products sold, or can we put in a description on the invoice, price includes all taxes? Good question. This is something that when you sell taxable goods or services in Iowa, you either have to have a separate line that says, times sales tax on there, or you can have tax included in the price as long as it says so. I gave an example last month. We talked about this topic a little bit. Let's say that you went to the movies, for instance. Many times movie theaters, just for convenience purposes, they don't want to mess around counting out a lot of change, so they charge whole dollars, even dollar amounts to go to the movies. Their prices usually say the price of the movie is, say, $10, tax included. That's okay. As long as it says tax included, you do not have to have a separate line charging Iowa sales tax. So, good question. Let's see here. We've got another one. Contractor retailer. We have construction contracts that are tax exempt for new construction, reconstruction, but we still pay tax on our cost of goods used in the contract. Should this report it as sales tax or use tax? Okay. Well, what you're saying is you contractor retailer, so you paid no tax on any items that were placed in inventory. You paid no tax on that. Then you drew the items out of inventory. When you drew them out of inventory, and assuming you're located in Iowa, this would be reported on the goods consumed line on the Iowa quarterly sales tax return. So you would owe local option tax if you did that withdrawal from inventory in an area that has local option tax. So again, that situation, being a contractor retailer, this is going to be reported on the sales tax return in that case. Okay, good question. All righty, how often and when do I file? Your filing frequency, it depends on how much money you expect to collect. This was on the application when you applied for an Iowa tax permits, okay? The dollar figures, I'm going to back up here just a second. The dollar figures, you're either going to fall into the annual status, which we're not talking a whole lot of money there collected in the course of a year, $120 in the course of a year. We've also got quarterly status, which means you are collecting less than $500 a month. We've got monthly status, which means you're collecting more than $500 a month. And we also have semi-monthly status, and I'm drawing a blank on that right now. It's a lot of money. You're sending, I believe I want to say 8,000 sticks in my mind, but don't quote me for sure. But if you're collecting more than that, some larger dollar figures, you're a semi-monthly filer for Iowa sales tax purposes. And one thing that I wanted to just make sure that I clarified with you, this is something that Dan brought up just a little bit earlier. When it comes to filing returns, most people do the filing through our e-file and pay system, okay? You're going to need your BEN, your business e-file number. This is something that the department provides to you. When we process your application for a tax permit, we're going to send you not only the tax permit, we're also going to send you your business e-file number. Hold on to that number. You've got to have it to get into the system. You're also going to need your user ID. This is the default one that we give you is 0001. So 3 zeros and a 1 is your user ID. Now that person can add other users to the system and they'd have a different number, but that's the default. We always give you 0001. And you're also going to need a password. This is something that you set up when you first get into the system, and you're going to need these 3 things to get in every time. As we're getting closer to the due date for the quarterly return, we get a lot more traffic, people calling us, people emailing us that they're maybe having some issues. They can't remember their password, their user ID, maybe they lost their BIN. This is important. Hold on to these things, put them away somewhere. And I'd also recommend to you have plan B as well. If you are the person that handles this, what if you're sick that day? We recommend that you have a plan B so somebody else can do the filing if you cannot. We also recommend to people to file early. You don't have to pay early, but you can file early. Today is the 20th of July. The return's not due for the second quarter until August 1st. There's nothing that says you can't file it today, okay? Set up your electronic payment to come out on August 1st and you will be timely. We do not recommend that you wait until August 1st to do your filing. That's a very busy day on the phone for us when it's the due date. And if you need assistance getting your BIN or needing your user ID or something along that line, you may have a tough time getting a hold of us on that day. So file early, set up your electronic payment to come out on the due date, and life will be good. Don't wait till the last minute.
And even if you had 0 in sales, you need to file that 0, correct?
Correct. Dan makes a good point. Once you have a tax permit with the department, we expect you to file whether you owe any money or not. So even if there's nothing due, make sure you file a 0 due with us. Another thing Dan brought up a little bit earlier, when it comes to this local option sales tax, I said that you have to report to us and tell us which county you collected that money in. This can be either real easy. If you make all of your sales right there in Scott County, for instance, you've just got to report all your sales as Scott County sales. If, however, maybe you deliver things around to various counties, maybe you ship them all around the state of Iowa, you could have a lot of counties to keep track of for local option tax. On the quarterly return, you've got to tell us what your sales were that are subject to the local option tax in each county. That's how we know how to distribute the money. So you still send us all the money to the Department of Revenue, but based on your filings, if you have a local option tax that maybe goes for Clinton County, maybe goes for Muscatine County, Scott County, those are all in eastern Iowa, we will put that money in the pot for that particular county. And then we will distribute the money to those local communities that have the local option tax, again, based on a formula that we have that's based on property tax values and also population. We do that automatically, but we have to know where that money came from. So make sure that you do have it reported properly on the quarterly return. So good deal. Okay, let's see here. Yep, e-file and pay. This is where you get into the system at on our website. Just click on the link for e-file and pay and you are good to go. This is what the entry screen looks like. Again, there is a place to put your BEN. That's up in the top portion of the screen, the upper half. For those of you that are filing consumer's use tax, maybe you don't have a permit, you're not registered with us, click on the lower portion of the screen. Click on the not enrolled, and you can go ahead and you can get into the system and you can make a payment that way, even if you don't have a permit. But this is what the entry screen looks like. We've got another question on lost. Are magazine subscriptions taxable for lost tax in the county that the subscriber lives? Okay, on this situation, again, we've got to have delivery occurring in a lost area to determine if the lost applies. So if delivery is occurring, and again, you can click on the delivery on our website to get more information on it. We've got some good information there. But if delivery occurs in a lost county, you know, if you're taking this magazine subscription to your home and you happen to live in Scott County, we'll say, if delivery occurs there, it is a sales tax transaction, then the lost is going to apply. So again, check out our website and put in delivery. I make that link for people all the time because it's just good information, and I think it spells it out pretty clearly for people as well. So a good place to look for something. All righty. I was, again, getting a little bit ahead of myself here. How do I report and pay the lost? As I've mentioned several times, this is just all done on your quarterly sales tax return. You do not have to make a payment or do a filing with the local community that has the lost. It's all done through the Department of Revenue. Quarterly returns, or if you happen to be an annual filer, there's an annual return as well. Okay. All righty. Quiz question number 5. What do I need to access the e-file and pay system? Do you need your BEN, your user ID, your password, all of the above? The answer in this situation is D, all of the above. And again, I'll tell you, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but this time of year, telephones, emails, we're getting a lot of them related to these issues. It happens every quarter when there are returns. The week or two before the due date, we get this type of question all the time. So again, put this information someplace safe. You're going to need it for the future. Have it put away someplace. Have plan B so somebody else can do a filing if you're not available that day. But make sure you hold on to it. We get flooded with calls at this time of year when it's around the due date because people lose one of these items, and boy, you need it. Okay. Let's see. We've got a question here. Can you lay out how to pay semi-monthly? Can you give us an example for sales in July? Okay. Just briefly, semi-monthly filers, they file twice a month. They file for the first half of the month, the 1st through the 15th. That's always due by the 25th of the month. Okay. The second half of the month is always due at the beginning of the next month. Again, this is all done through the e-file and pay system. As a semi-monthly filer, you've got to do electronic payment in this situation. But you get into the e-file and pay system, you do your deposits. You're going to make 6 deposits in a quarter, and you're also going to file a quarterly return for us as well to report all the sales and make sure everything reconciles. But that's how this works out. Again, the 25th is for the first half of the month, and then the 10th of the following month is for the second half of the month. So for July, for our example, first half is due July 25th. Unless it comes on a Saturday, Sunday, or holiday, then you've got the next business day. The second half is going to be due on August 10th, unless it's on a Saturday, Sunday, or holiday. So hopefully that helps you out just a little bit.
Just an FYI on that, I think it's more than $5,000 a month.
Is it $5,000 a month? Okay, for semi-monthly. Thank you. Just drawing a blank on that one.
No problem.
It is something that is on the application as well, our business tax registration. Okay. Something else here. This is our Iowa Tax Research Library. A lot of times when people have questions for us, if it's something that if I'm answering a question, if I don't know the answer off the top of my head, the first place I go is our Tax Research Library. This is something that you can get into as well. If you've got a question, possibly that question has been asked at another point in time. So get in here, enter the Tax Research Library. It's from our website. You can enter a keyword to do a search, and you'll find out some information that we have out there. Maybe we've got a policy letter out there. Maybe we've got a declaratory ruling from the department, from the director. Maybe there was a court case on it. Put in some keywords, do some searching, and see what we have out there. Again, that's a tool that we use all the time. It's available to you just as it is for the folks that work here at the Department of Revenue. One thing also, a way to keep in touch with the department, we've got our website listed up here at the top of the slide again. And the part that's circled kind of on the right-hand side, you can subscribe to our various email updates. This is a way to keep in touch with the department. This is part of our marketing we do for things such as these webinars. If you subscribe to these, we send you out a reminder that these webinars are coming up. So it's a good way to stay in touch with the department. This is just an email update. You put in your email information, and you will receive emails from us periodically. You do not have to pay for this. This is a free subscription. And again, good way of staying in touch with the department. We've got various topics that you can subscribe to. You can pick and choose what you want. You can pick one of these. You can pick 2 or 3 of these. You can pick all of them. Myself, I subscribe to all of them. And as I've said many a time, I'm kind of the philosophy, I would rather have the information and not need it than need it and not have it. I know where the delete key is on my keyboard. If it's something that I don't deal with or something that really doesn't pertain to me so much, or I'm not going to run across this, I can just delete it. But again, there's a lot of other good information on there as well. Good way to stay in touch with the department. Department of Revenue is on Twitter. We put out tweets every working day of the month, and on occasion we put them out more than that. If an issue comes up, we'll put some information out there for you. Does anybody follow us on Twitter? If so, please let us know. It is another way of staying in touch. Social media is huge these days, and it's another good way to stay in touch with the department. Like us on Facebook. We need more friends. Okay, we do have a following on Facebook. We put information out there on every working day of the month, and also we put it out there more often. on occasion as need. If an issue pops up, maybe if some of you, I know this is a sales and use tax webinar, but during the income tax season, if anybody is a preparer, if issues pop up during the filing season, we'll put something out there on Facebook, Twitter as well. Just another way to stay in touch with the department and to get some information from the department. So like us on Facebook. We definitely need more friends. So get out there. If you need more information on Iowa sales and use tax, check out our sales and use tax guide. This is on our publications on our website, and you can get, this is the basic informational booklet. We've also got business-specific informational booklets out there as well. Maybe if you deal with sales tax in the ag area for farmers for equipment that they buy, there is a publication for that. There's a publication for cosmetologists, photographers. There's many different publications. Check out our website. You can get more information. If you're looking on the website and you can't find what you're looking for and you still have questions, that's okay. You can give us a call, 8 to 4:15, Monday through Friday. We've got a toll-free number. Give us a call. Talk to a taxpayer service specialist. Again, I got to warn you here, though, right before the due date can be tough to get through on that line just because the volume goes through the roof right before the due date of quarterly returns. You can also send us an email as well. Depending on your question, I may be one of the folks that responds to your email. I'm one of a pool that answers those, and so you may get a response from me, possibly. Reminder to everybody about our identity theft. Unfortunately, this is the world we live in today, so be careful. The Department of Revenue will always identify itself if we ever contact you. We do not ask you to provide your full Social Security number by email or regular mail. We don't send out emails asking for personal or for financial information. So just be careful with that. If you are unsure of a communication you've gotten from the Department of Revenue, don't give any confidential information. Don't give your Social Security number. Don't give your bank information or any personal information. Contact us. We can tell you if somebody is an employee here and if what you're getting is legitimate. I know I've gotten emails over the years. It's a very common thing these days. Somebody will say, hey, I got a letter from somebody saying they wanted to audit my 2014 Iowa tax return and they want information. Is this for real? And I can look up and say, yep, that is an auditor of ours or that's an examiner of ours. You can go ahead and you can speak to them. When in doubt, play it safe, okay? We have to do that in this day and age. All of us do. So just a reminder for you. Another reminder as well, the purpose of this webinar today is to hopefully provide some information for you on Iowa sales and use tax. If you're involved in an audit or protest situation, can't get in the middle of that. You've got to deal with your contact through the department to resolve your protest issue or your audit issues. If you're not happy with how things are going, ask to speak to the supervisor. But this is something, again, we can't get in the middle of an ongoing audit or a protest situation. That's not something we can do. That's not the purpose of this webinar today. All righty, and that wraps up our time, and I think we did pretty good, Dan. Looks like it's 1 o'clock. We nailed it.
Before we get to questions or any other last minute questions, I want to make sure that we mention our next webinar, Terry. So on August 24th, we are going to be doing one specific to the topic of lawn care, landscaping, those kind of seasonal services offered under that umbrella. So that'll be the 24th of August at noon. Same place. Same place here.
And you're going to listen to me again too. I'll be back for that one. We've got some other webinars coming up as well. Check out our website. We've got information listed there on the topics and the dates for those as well. But August 24th is the next one.
So, and then with that, maybe I'll just open it up to any last questions here. Amanda's asking, are we going to do one on construction?
Good question. We don't currently have one scheduled for construction. I guess that's something we could look at for the future. I don't, again, it's not on the calendar right now, but distinct possibility. I think Greg is listening out there. Maybe that's one that we could consider doing.
Have we done one in the past?
We have done construction in the past.
So that's possible then, Amanda, that you could also find it as a archived webinar.
that one should be out there because we have done that one before.
So maybe we could try to get in touch with you and get you that link.
And another thing, Amanda, too, if you have not, check out our publication for construction contractors on our website. That's got information related to the construction industry as well.
All right.
Okay, looks like we've got all our questions for now. So again, I'd like to thank everybody for attending today's webinar. I enjoy doing these things. I hope that shows for you. Again, if you still have questions, let us know. I gave some information on how to contact us. We'll be happy to help you out in any way we can. And hopefully if landscape and lawn care is up your alley, I hope to see you next month. Same place, we'll be here again. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Screen sharing has stopped. Okay. I don't know if we're still on sound. I never did mute us.
By the time I find it, Patrick will probably have already fixed it.
I can't do it for you.
Maybe if you just X out there.
Let's try that. In meeting for all.